So I've been debating whether or not to even talk about this for quite a while now because I am just a construction worker. I'm a construction worker with an IQ above 90, which makes me unique among construction workers, but I am not a scientist. That's the thing. I am not somebody who is paid to study things and to use the scientific method and to observe and to create a control group and to mark my findings down. But I do that anyways. I have studied a lot of different things. I've studied a little about a lot. And I can tell you a bunch about the history of filmography. I could tell you a whole lot about meteorology, obviously, and tell you a lot about the electrical trade and how electricity has been developed over the years. I can tell you a lot about the 7,000 different types of fetishes that there are. But the main thing that always got me as a kid and got me thinking and got me dreaming was astronomy. And I loved studying the stars and the galaxies and the nebulas and the black holes and all that sort of stuff always fascinated me. But what always pissed me off as a kid was how much of a big deal people make over the creation and the beginning of the universe. It doesn't make any sense to me that you're spending, 8.7 billion a year on science in the United States alone. Like, there's a lot of money being spent on researching the stars, on astronomy. And 8.7 is a number I just saw on Google a minute ago. I don't even know what year that's for, but the fact that that was spent in 1 year is astonishing to me. Whenever you're spending it at a time now, whenever the moon race is long since passed, nobody's really messing with Mars too hard as far as getting there. No return visits to the moon seem to be in the works. People are always saying that they're dreaming big and working hard, but ultimately the main thing to come out of the scientific community, the astronomy community, since pretty much the moon race, was theory of how the universe was created. And it's absolute garbage. There is no reason to be studying the beginning of the universe because the technologies that are created to study the beginning of the universe benefit only one thing. That's the field of telescopes, which is good. I mean, we can definitely expand our repertoire of good telescopes and good technologies for telescopes, but that can be discovered in other ways besides trying to look back in time to see the Big Bang by, filtering your telescope way, way out where you can see all the light rays from the explosion of the primeval atom that created the universe, as opposed to the moon race, which created a boatload of technologies that we use very frequently. I mean, I just Googled it and found a small list. Prosthetics, firefighting equipment, water filtration equipment, air purifiers, infrared thermometers, home insulation, to scratch the surface of the things that were created. Yes, this is a lottery ticket. Get over it. There were so many useful things that were created by just the moon race, by just that little span of time. So many things we benefited from as a result of JFK saying, we choose to go to the moon. That was a turning point. That was a miniature industrial revolution that resulted from that specific instance in our history as a species trying to get up into the sky. That was huge for us. But since then, what has been done? We're pissing around in low Earth orbit. We've sent drones to certain things. We've sent drones to image Saturn. Okay, that's helpful. We know what Saturn is and what it's made of and what color it is. And it has rings. I don't know if y'all noticed, but Saturn has rings. Yep. And Jupiter, I tell you, she's a big one. Got a big dot on it. It's kind of red. Kind of looks like all the red dots I've got on my face because I'm 26 with acne of a 15-year-old. There's some things that have been discovered. Minor technologies have been created. No major jumps have been made in the past 50 years. Nothing really has been done major. You've got a couple things that have been done here and there. Nothing as big as the moon race because we're worried about trying to prove the Big Bang was what created the universe, and we're trying to prove what causes redshift and dark flow and trying to prove that dark matter exists, and there's nothing to be gained from doing that. First of all, may I say the Big Bang Theory makes absolutely no sense. It is the dumbest thing humans have come up with. Ever. The theory of intelligent design makes more sense than the Big Bang. Let's talk about the Big Bang for a second. Okay, I'm man, now I'm gonna lean my chair forward and pull it forward. I'm gonna rant here for just a second. Okay, the Big Bang Theory was made by a blind, drunk, epileptic beaver. Okay, you know I hate beavers. The Big Bang Theory states that in the very beginning of the universe, 13.78 billion years ago, there was a primeval egg, a primordial fireball, an item of insurmountable, unfathomable mass and energy. It was a singularity, like a black hole. Remember I said that. It was a singularity that had all of the mass that the universe would eventually be composed of packed into this one little tight spot, this point in space, and it exploded. And it became the universe. And just a couple milliseconds after that stupid thing exploded, the universe started to cool down. And all this mass has been flung out really fast. And so, you've got all of the stuff that has been exploded out starts to cool down, and all of the quarks and neutrinos and negrons, or whatever the other version of a proton is, all these different subatomic particles, the proto-atomic part of the pre-atomic particles, start to condense from the debris cloud left over by the Big Bang's explosion. And so they start to develop into hydrogen, helium, and lithium, and all of the basic elements on the periodic table. And those start to combine, those atoms start to combine, and so they form the more complex elements like carbon and phosphorus and all that sort of stuff. And this dust and debris cloud that is left over from the Big Bang starts to accrete. And dust and gas in a perfect vacuum in zero gravity does accrete. It does form into rocks, and the rocks form into big rocks, and the big rocks form into asteroids, and then into planets, and then the planets become gas giants because of the huge atmosphere they accumulate, and then those planets are ignited and it turns into a star, and so on and so forth. The circle of life rotates. But what bothers me so hard about that is, first of all, you have all of the mass that the universe would be created from packed into one space, into a singularity, into one little tiny space. What is a black hole made of? What is a black hole defined as? A black hole is an object of such immeasurable, unimaginable mass and gravity that it has got such a huge amount of gravity that light itself cannot escape from the black hole. Light goes into the black hole and adds to the mass. Apparently, black holes convert light into matter and add to their own mass. You cannot destroy a black hole. If you drop a bomb on it, then all of the energy that is released from the bomb, all the light from the flash of the thing exploding, the shrapnel from the bomb casing, that all goes into the black hole and adds to its mass. You can't bomb a black hole to make it explode. You can't shoot a laser beam at a black hole because you're shooting concentrated light at a black hole. And apparently black holes, like I say, I'm pretty sure I did read that black holes convert light and energy into matter and add to the mass. It adds energy to its mass. So you shoot a laser at a black hole, it just becomes bigger. You can't hit a black hole with another black hole. Say you were able to construct a Dyson sphere around a black hole and then use the Dyson sphere to maneuver the thing around, and you hit a black hole using your black hole that you threw a harness around. They're just going to either coalesce to become a bigger black hole, or they're going to hit off of each other and spin off into the universe like you took two circular saws and smashed them together while they were both running at full speed. That's how a black hole would react to another one. You can't destroy one. They are indestructible. The only way a black hole can be gotten rid of is through hundreds of trillions of years of Hawking radiation, creating virtual particles at the edge of the black hole's event horizon, where half of the virtual particle goes off into the black hole, the other half goes out, and so that you have this very, very slow process of evaporation of the black hole, finally killing it after trillions of years. That's the only way to get rid of one, because they have so much matter packed into them, that they have such gravity that it binds them together and makes them indestructible. So what was the primordial egg that made the universe, not the Milky Way, the universe? What was that? What was it made of? How did it have all of the matter, everything that the universe would be composed of, packed into one small spot, a singularity, and that exploded? Black holes can't be exploded. You can't have one go supernova. There is not a force in the universe capable of causing that effect. So how did it explode? How did the Big Bang happen from this bomb that created the universe? It had too much gravity. It had to have too much gravity. Now they say, I will circle back to the fact that they said that atoms were created after the Big Bang, after a couple milliseconds after whenever the universe started to cool down. Okay? If atoms were created then, what was it made of? What was the egg made of? It wasn't made of matter, apparently. It wasn't made of mass. It was just, what, soup? Hopes and dreams? Ideas? What was it made of? Okay, so there's that. And a couple theories have been hypothesized, and I should say hypothesized because they're not theories. You can't prove them right. Nobody was there to observe the beginning of the universe. That's why it pisses me off when people say it's the Big Bang Theory. It's not the Big Bang Theory, it's the Big Bang Dream, because you dream and hope and pray that you're correct about something that's absolutely stupid. But the mass did not exist to be able to give the thing mass, because matter did not exist yet. Atoms were not there yet. Also, the idea that everything cooled down within milliseconds after the Big Bang happened and flung everything out. Temperature, cooling, heating, all that is defined as the kinetic energy which is stored in an atom or a molecule. That's what regulates, that's what determines temperature. Whenever you've got a molecule of water, H2O, is sitting there and it's vibrating, kinetic energy, it's vibrating really slowly, that water is frozen. It's a solid block of ice, because the molecules that make up the block of ice they have very low kinetic energy. They're moving very slowly, and whenever you heat that block of ice up, it melts. And so the water that melts out, the molecules are doing this little number right here, where they have more kinetic energy, they're moving faster. And so they start to spread out apart because they're moving fast enough to bump everybody else out the way. And that's why it goes from being dense to less dense whenever it goes from being a solid to a liquid. And then whenever they vibrate even harder, whenever they're heated up even more and the molecules are given even more kinetic energy, they start to vibrate so much that they become a gas. They evaporate. They become dispersed really hard by them banging into each other and flinging them out in all directions. That is that is temperature. That is what temperature is determined by, is the kinetic energy of an atom. So if atoms did not exist yet, how did you determine that the universe cooled down? Like, you can't even figure out that it heated up or cooled down, because atoms and molecules don't exist yet to determine the temperature. What bothers me just as much is the theory of accretion, and that creating rocks and dust and planets and stars and galaxies. Accretion does happen. Everything does have gravity. But how did everything start spinning? And furthermore, how did an explosion of something that big create a gigantic universe with extremely complex but very well-tuned, well-timed, well-put-together systems so complex we can't comprehend it, and we can't make computers that comprehend it either, that rotates, everything spins exactly the way it needs to not smash into everything. Occasionally, I'm sure that, some sort of collisions happen. A collision was observed where some comet broke up and hit Jupiter in 22 different places. That was an outlier. Very few celestial collisions have ever been observed. Everything spins and everything rotates and everything revolves, everything orbits so mathematically precisely that an explosion is a hilarious idea of how everything came to exist. Because whenever things explode, they tend to not make orderly systems that are very complex in the result. I mean, the U.S. dropped 2 bombs onto Japan that ended the World War II war that was in the Pacific Theater. Those explosions did not explode and create bigger cities in Japan. Killed a lot of people, damaged a lot of structure, cost a lot of money in damages, and ruined a lot of lives. That was not order that was created by that. It was chaos. It was horrible. And explosions are good at doing that. They're good at messing things up. They're not good at creating complex systems that work with clockwork precision. Also, I don't think they make things that spin. Because you've got all this dust and gas that's spread out from everything being shot out of the black hole that created the universe, the Big Bang thing. Why did everything not just keep moving? Why did everything accrete and slow down and stop? Like, sure, you've got things that are, like the universe is confirmed to be expanding. Like, all the galaxies are moving away from us. And that was kind of what catalyzed the idea that maybe the Big Bang is a thing. Because everything's moving out as if it was flung out by some ancient unseen force. But whenever things are shot out into space, they continue moving unless acted upon by another force. If you scatter dust, like take a solo cup of dirt and throw it out into the wind, it's all going to disperse and scatter. It's not going to come together as a rock and then land. And you can do that in any wind speed and in zero gravity. You throw it out like that, it's all going to keep on moving. It's all going to keep on separating. It's not going to come together. Even if it moves on for infinity, it's not going to come back together. Whenever it's been spread out like that, it can't have any speed. It cannot be moving apart. in order to begin to accrete, because its own velocity is going to outweigh its own gravity. So how did everything accrete? If it got exploded out, it had to be stationary at some point to do that, or not moving fast enough to have its velocity outweigh the force of its own gravity. So nothing should have come together if the Big Bang actually flung everything out. And in addition to that, how did everything start rotating? How was the Earth not stationary? How was the sun turn? If it accreted, what gave it rotation? What acted upon it that made it start doing this instead of it just coming together and being a sun that doesn't rotate? Same with Earth. Earth was supposed to have accreted from the same dust cloud that the sun was created from, as well as all the planets, but most of the dust and rock was accreted into what the sun hogged all of our material. How did everything start rotating? Why is Uranus? How is that rotating sideways, where everything else is rotating this way? What caused these phenomenon that are very plainly and blatantly running against this stupid theory that was made for no reason? There's no reason to wonder. I'll circle back to the original intent of this video. There is no reason to wonder how the universe was created. It gains us nothing. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't put money in anybody's pocket to find out where we all came from. It doesn't. And again, I said intelligent design makes more sense. It honestly does. I'm not even going to call out a specific God or a specific religion that follows a god. Maybe it was the god of, whatever religion it may be. The idea of intelligent design states that something created everything, as opposed to nothing created everything, this imaginary egg. That makes more sense simply because, like, you think of a kid building with Legos. The fact that a kid can build with Legos means that the kid is not a Lego. The kid is not made of Legos. The kid is a human. He is bound by the laws of human physics, as opposed to he's a Lego, where he's bound by the laws of Lego physics, where you're made from ABS plastic and you're about that tall and you're easily stepped on by people who are trying to walk through the living room and not have socks on. You're able to think, you're able to comprehend things, you're able to do things that Legos cannot. A god or some other force that is intelligent and able to put together something beautiful like this universe is able to make time and space and matter and energy because they're not bound by any of the laws which govern them. They made time, therefore they cannot begin or end. They made matter, therefore they're not made of matter. They made energy. They made the laws of physics, therefore they can break them at will. That makes more sense. The Big Bang attempts and fails dramatically to explain where everything came from. And frankly, I don't care where we came from. I don't care what created us. It doesn't add anything to my paycheck, and it shouldn't add anything to anybody else's. It doesn't make any sense. You're sitting there in a desk chair, hypothesizing about how everything might have been shit out of a giant rabbit, the celestial rabbit, who made a big poop one day, and the poop decayed, and everything that fell out of that rabbit's poop that day became stars, and he had such an intense poop because he ate spicy celestial peppers that it set all of his poop on fire, and now it's stars. And I mean, that makes more sense than the Big Bang. And the fact that a rabbit pooped one day and the universe was made doesn't change how I'm going to live. And it doesn't give me anything that improves my life or my quality of life at all, like the moon race did back when people had ambition instead of just snorting crack and pretending to work all day.